Hi there, Ronnie here, Amber's Night coming at you with another sort of first impressions video. This time for True20. This is the revised edition from Green Ronin. I'm going to do a video on Blue Rose specifically in a minute. Um, what can we say about True20? True20 started life as a stripped down version of the D20 system. Most of the tropes are there, the same 6 stats are there, the use of feats and skills are still there. Nothing complete that people who play D20 are going to be unfamiliar with. There are some changes though. One of the main changes with True20 was they streamlined it in essence, particularly for True20, so that it could be used as a generic system. This is not a fantasy game. This is a generic system trying to essentially throw its lot in with other games such as Savage Worlds, GURPS most famously, basic role-playing, hero system, that kind of a deal. There are only 3 basic classes. There is the Adept, the Expert, and the Warrior. Now the Adept covers all kinds of magical and mystical characters. This is everything from the grand wizards and clerics of your fantasy setting to psionics of the modern and science fiction, and indeed magical if you want to put it in there. I've seen a very good True20 supplement, fan-made supplement called True Force, which is a fan-made Star Wars supplement, which deals with Jedi as an adept. Warrior is pretty much self-explanatory. It's, you know, everything from your knight in shining armor all the way up to your marine grunt, all the way through. It's anyone whose primary application is combat. Expert is that one sort of umbrella. It's someone who has some sort of technical expertise, but isn't a combat expertise or a magical expertise, such as a thief, an assassin, a noble, a politician. The skills, I mean, some skills can only be used, some skills and feats can only be used by certain character classes. But the fact that there isn't any specific classes, like a knight or a wizard, allows you to tailor your character exactly the way you want it within those 3. So even though it's only 3 characters, there's an amazing amount of fluidity that you can put in. The other thing it does away with is hit points. Rather than have hit points, weapons do a specific amount of damage. In True20, if you roll a critical success, you get an additional amount of damage. This is slightly different from Blue Rose, but I'll deal with that with Blue Rose. And that gives you a number at the end. The player who has been hit, or the NPC, the character that's been hit, then makes a toughness save. And if they make it, then the weapon glances off. It's nothing but a scratch. They might be a little stunned, but nothing excessive. If they don't make it, then depending on how by how much they missed will depend on the nature of the wound, and it's everything from a light wound down. The system reminds me very much of the system used for D6 Star Wars. It's a strange system for people who are just used to hit points. Rather than a system where one hit may happen, one hit may not. I like the system personally. I think it works. It's different. It would take a while, I think, for new players to get into it, but I think once they got into it, they would be fine. It's not a complex system. Similarly, it gets rid of money. Now, I understand why it got rid of money. It got rid of money for a very simple reason. We don't, you know, how do you how do you deal with converting prices from gold pieces to pounds and shillings and pence, dollars and cents, galactic credits? How do you do that? Well, the way they get round it, which is different from something like Savage Worlds. Savage Worlds just has everything in dollars. And basically they say, well, you can always take away dollars and just put in whatever your currency type is, which is one way of doing it. But this one actually has a wealth score, depending on certain feats that you might take, depending on your background and so on. You will start with a certain wealth score. Essentially, every item also has a wealth score. Now, if your wealth score is the same or higher than the wealth score of the item that you're attempting to buy, you can have it. Provided, of course, it's legal and legitimate to have it. If the wealth score is higher, the item has a higher wealth score than yours, you roll a d20 and you roll it as if it's a skill. You roll, you add your wealth score. If you get equal to or greater, you can buy it. If you're buying excessively more expensive items, ones that have a very high wealth score, your wealth score will start to come down. Eventually you will run out of money. It's a very odd system, and the only problem that I have with it necessarily is you could find yourself, for example, at a bazaar or a marketplace in a town. Let's say it's a fantasy setting, and you roll to get that really expensive looking sword, which has a wealth score of say 18 because it's a wonderfully beautiful piece of sword, and you know, you fudge your roll and it's just a pain in the ass and you don't roll enough and you don't get it. You then look at that lovely bit of armor, which is a wealth score of 21 because it's immaculate, it's lovely, and you've never seen anything like it. And you roll really well and you get it. Now this creates a strange anomaly for me, where you got the item that was more expensive after not being able to have enough to get the lower item. One possible way around that I've considered is the use of one roll. Just roll it once and just say, right, that is your wealth score. You have that. That is your extra. Go shop. It's one way of getting round. But I'm sure other GMs will come up with other things. I've bought a lot of the supplements for True20 because I find them very cheap. There is a Warrior's Handbook, Adept's Handbook, and Expert's Handbook, which essentially expands the rules, gives new feats and new ideas for use with True20. I bought the True20 Bestiary, which is the one-size-fits-all big monster list for True20. Again, it has an awful lot of monsters. A lot of them are fantasy creatures. Some are sort of science fiction based. Is it a good system? I like it. I like the feel of it. I like what I think I'll be able to do with it as a system. I think it will work very well. The only problem I think I may come across is the same that I have with Savage Worlds, is in an attempt to be a one-size-fits-all, there's not enough meat for any particular genre, but hopefully, you know, there's enough there to get around it. True20 is derived from D20. It's not a separate system that's just called True20. It is a derivative of D20, and there are conversion notes in the True20 core rulebook that allow you to convert D20 to True20 and back again. This means that if you have, or if you want, you could buy um, a campaign setting, a an adventure supplement that was written for the D20 system, and I suppose with a little fiddling, you probably could do it for Pathfinder as well, because it is also a derivative of D20. And with a little conversion, which you have the notes for, you could use it for True20. This expands it greatly, because it also means you could use uh, stuff out there for D20 Modern, D20 Future, with a little bit of jiggery pokery. Yes, it will require a little more work, but it's already out there. And there are some nice settings for True20. I don't think it has been anywhere near as supported as, quite frankly, I think it should be. And that is probably its biggest minus, that it's not been as supported. I would love to see more books for True20, more setting books. Um, Similarly to the way the Savage Worlds have done the companion books, I would love to see a True20 fantasy, which greatly expands on the fantasy sections. I would love to see True20 horror, True20 sci-fi, True20 pulp, and so on. I think that would be of a great deal of help. Whether they will ever happen or not, I don't know. But the system itself is very good. I actually think it works better than D20, but I'm a little biased. Um, but I think it's a good system, and I think it's well worth your time having a look at.